In what may be the best article I've ever read about the Seattle Kraken, a fishing analogy describes perhaps what it will take to get Berkley Catton ready for the NHL.
You are Locked On Kraken, your daily podcast on the Seattle Kraken, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi there, Seattle hockey fans. Welcome to another episode of Locked On Kraken, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where we bring you your favorite team, the Seattle Kraken, every single day. Erica L. Ayala here, your host of Locked On Kraken, coming to you from my hotel room in Chicagoland. Very excited to be at the National Association for Hispanic Journalists Conference representing CBS Sports, where I contribute as a hockey analyst, but mostly a women's basketball analyst, podcaster, do a little bit of everything. And I am accredited for the 2026 Olympics in Milano Cortina. We're getting all kinds of emails from USOPC to get things finalized. I have an assignment I'm super excited about for the Olympics, but we'll talk about that coming up. On today's episode, I'm going to talk and walk you through a beautifully written article that talks about Berkley Catton. We've talked before about if he will be able to get through the hump, get through training camp, and be an NHLer this season, or will he get the Shane Wright treatment? We'll talk a little bit about that. Then we're also going to talk, about this beautiful analogy, this beautiful fish analogy that I read. The first two segments are basically going to blend together. And then finally, we are going to close the show by, going back to the comments, because something that I didn't say, but definitely alluded to on the last episode, I kind of feel like my point was proven. Yes, indeed, in the comments, because, your girl goes to the comments. We'll get into that. Thank you again for making Locked On Kraken your first listen of the day, your midday listen, your late night listen. Either way, we appreciate you being here. Okay. I knew I wanted to talk about Berkley Catton, and I was looking at some articles trying to figure out how I was going to approach this. And I came across an article by Mike Varel. I hope I'm pronouncing the last name right, for the Seattle Times. And he beautifully intertwined something that Jake O'Brien said during his media availability about his passion for fishing. And he related that to developing young stars for the Seattle Kraken. As I've mentioned, everydayers, you might recall, I grew up fishing. I love fishing. I haven't been fishing in several years, but I'm gonna have to get back to that. But I grew up fishing. I do love fishing. I like catching fish. I like eating fish. The cleaning and all the cooking, not my favorite, but I can do it. So there's just so many things, the aquatic theme of the Seattle Kraken. I love a good development story. I'm all about leadership development. Everydayers and OGers, you know that about me. So this was just a beautiful article. Well done. Stick taps to Mike. It's entitled, it's commentary, Why Kraken Need Homegrown Prospects Like Berkley Catton to Hit to Become Perennial Contenders. And so we're going to get to that article, but I'm just letting you know that article, chef's kiss, masterpiece. We're going to talk about that article a little bit more in the second segment, but there was another article over at Yahoo Sports, which is partnered with the Hockey News. Who does Berkley Catton need to compete with to make the Kraken roster? Now, this is a really interesting question. We've heard from Berkley Catton at development camp that he's open to playing whatever position is needed. I do think that if we compare and contrast Shane Wright to Berkley Catton, yes, I do think Berkley Catton might be ready, a little bit more NHL ready, or at least more Seattle Kraken ready in some ways than Shane Wright was. And I think some of that is how they approach the cognitive part of the game, to be honest. And I think Shane has been learning how to harness his high IQ and execute that effectively physically on the ice, where I think Berkley Catton is a little bit more fluid. Almost, he reminds me from that perspective like a Matty Beniers. I think that Berkley Catton probably has a little bit more raw talent, I would say, than Matty B. But the IQ for all three of these players, very high in my estimation, but very different, which I love. And so I don't think Catton is competing against Shane Wright. He's not competing against Matty Beniers. So who is he competing against? And can he find his way to the roster? So just as a reminder, Berkley Catton is 19 years old. A lot of people feel that he's just too skilled to stay with the WHL. The Spokane Chiefs made it to the final. They fell at the final. He talked about that at development camp a lot. But remember, he's not able to go to the AHL. He also can't play in the NCAA because he already signed an entry-level contract. So he has effectively a 9-day tryout if he makes the opening day roster before the Seattle Kraken would effectively have to send him back to juniors. And that's where this gets a little bit dicey. I do like the upside of his game. If we look at what Berkley Catton did just last season, including that deep playoff run, he scored 109 points, 38 goals, 38 goals, 71 assists in 57 regular season games. And I mean, my dude was slacking a little bit in the points. He got 116 points in 23-24. That being said, he played 11 more games. So 54 goals he had in that 23-24 season and 62 assists. He's crushing it. In 20 playoff games, 11 goals, 31 assists for Jackie Robinson points total. If you don't know who Jackie Robinson is, maybe that's because our government took him off of the military website. I'll probably delete that. We'll see how I feel. If you don't know who Jackie Robinson is, there's a joke that I'm going to try hard not to make. Jackie Robinson was a UCLA alum, played multiple sports at UCLA, and he broke the color barrier in modern baseball by playing for the LA Dodgers. And he wore number 42. So Berkley Catton had 42 points in this most recent playoffs. Beast mode. And that's why, like this Yahoo Sports article, this was written by Julian Guadio. So Julian, I've seen and read other people wondering if Berkley Catton is effectively just too good to go back to the WHL. But again, because of his age and because of how the agreements have gone between junior hockey and the NHL, if he doesn't make the Kraken roster, then he has to go back to juniors. And so this is what Julian is arguing, that it's still not a guarantee that he makes the Kraken roster. And if he makes the roster, he's going to have to compete in a way that is going to catch Lane Lambert's attention. And Julian points out that Lane wants to play a defensive style of game. I do think that Berkley Catton has that sandpaper in his game, and he can definitely bring that. When you compare him as far as ready-made defensively, Matty Beniers has the edge there, and Matty B, as I've said multiple times on this podcast, has gotten much better on the defensive side. I think he's continues to just get even more solid and solid. If you look at him compared to Shane Wright, the size difference stands out. And I continue to tell you, and I spoke to Jessica Campbell about this at the beginning of May, Shane Wright has gotten even bigger. He continues to put on muscle in a way that we're just really not seeing with Matty B, to be honest. 6 foot, 198 is what he's listed as, Shane Wright, that is, for elite prospects. Berkley Catton listed at 5'10", 174. And I think that Shane's progression as far as the physicality, really like that. Maddie's uh, development when it comes to the defensive side of game, mwah, chef's kiss. My estimation is that Berkley Catton can help up the ante for all three of those young centermen when it comes to the offensive side. But here's the rub, and this is what Julian and other people are asking, including, again, at development camp. Does Berkley Catton have a chance to make this roster as a centerman? Do the Seattle Kraken need him as a centerman, or is he better suited to compete at the wing position? Julian throws out some names of players that he could be competing against, including Ty Cartier, who we talked about the other day, Frederick Gaudreau, and Yanni Newman. Now, he's not going to win out with Newman when it comes to size. He's not going to win out against Cartier when it comes to grit, at least not from what I've seen. Although I think, again, Berkley Catton can definitely get there. Don't know much about Gaudreau's game, gonna be honest. So if you listen to the show every day, if you're an everydayer, an OGer, then you know I'm an eye test gal. I was not at development camp, so I reserve comment until I can kind of see what Frederick's working with. But returns that I've heard, Berkley Catton looked really great. He stood out at development camp. So even among the prospects, which the Seattle Kraken are continually touted as one of the better teams when it comes to their overall pipeline, he's standing out. So this is where his versatility has started to come into question. Again, I've mentioned it already multiple times on today's episode. He was asked specifically about if he can switch back and forth. That versatility, I think, is going to make it a lot easier for him to find his way on an NHL roster this season. So let me know in the comments, do you think Berkley Catton will make the NHL roster? Do you think he should make the NHL roster? I know a lot of people were expecting Shane Wright to make the roster, and I didn't agree. Obviously, the Seattle Kraken thought that he wasn't quite ready. I think Shane has been on the right trajectory. So I think that was probably the right move. In hindsight, there were things and maybe people that were not on the same page, not specific to Shane Wright, but the organization overall. So I don't know if we can tell, or if I can tell right now, if in hindsight that was a good thing, a bad thing, indifferent, or maybe we just don't know yet. This is going to be a key year for Shane Wright. That's my big tell. I think it's going to be massive. 2025, we're still in 2025. Remember, Jessica Campbell told us that exclusively on Locked On Kraken, 2025, year of Beniers, and he did turn a corner at the top of the year. So will that continue into the 2025 portion of the upcoming season? I sure hope so. So then what's the slogan, Jessica, for 2026? We got to follow up with her to find out. So can Berkley Catton be in that mix? I really do think he can be. And, we're going to talk about, again, one of the most beautiful articles that I've ever read. And I think it explains why this might be a really good setup for a player like Berkley Catton. We'll talk about that coming up on today's episode of Locked On Kraken. Today's episode of Locked On Kraken brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. We know summer sports are in full swing. The WNBA All-Star captains just announced their rosters. And so, baseball under the lights, golf on the green, high stakes soccer action. FanDuel, and I already mentioned the WNBA, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. I'm probably one of those friends at the beach. Definitely not getting sunburned, though. I like to keep the skin right. Anyway, I love FanDuel when it comes to future bets. Berkley Catton, he becomes a rookie. What are his rookie of the year odds? Of course, we'll talk about it right here on Locked On Kraken. And if you're new to FanDuel, no worries. New customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. And thanks as always for making Locked On Kraken a part of your daily destination. Erica L. Ayala here, your host of Locked On Kraken. Talked about Berkley Catton. Can he cut through? Mentioned some things again in that Yahoo article that I think illuminate things we've talked about. But now I want to take you, oh man, to this just beautifully delicious article. Well done, Mike, for the Seattle Times. I don't even know. All right, this came out July 2nd, which makes sense, right around the time that we heard from Berkley Catton at the most recent development camp. And again, Jake O'Brien, I played you that clip on Locked On Kraken. He talked about, and he really got into it. He got into the specifics. And my dude, Mike, took those specifics from Jake O'Brien and infused it into the conversation that I started with you in the first segment. I want to read how this just goes in. I'm going to read like the first chunk here for you because I just think it's so beautiful. The muskie is affectionately referred to as the fish of 10,000 casts. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service attributes that moniker to their, quote, power, size, and difficulty of being caught due to their elusive nature. I love that. Also, if you're looking at the sidebar and it says 1,000 casts, no, you didn't. I forgot a zero, but that's okay. I continue on with Mike's words. On Monday, Jake O'Brien said something similar 3 days after the Seattle Kraken selected the 18-year-old center with the 8th overall pick in the 2025 NHL draft. The Toronto native and alternate captain for the Brantford Bulldogs of the Ontario Hockey League, O'Brien fell in love with fishing alongside friends on camping trips. He spent weekends with those same friends at a family cottage, chasing muskies while the casts multiply. It's tough to catch, but when you catch one, it's pretty electric, O'Brien said. In the NHL, the same could be said about superstar centers. I mean, have any of you watched Almost Famous? I hope that you were getting the energy of Ben Fong Torres when he reads, the beginning of the article that culminated from basically the entire movie. I forget the full line. Basically, it's something like, I'm with Ban Stillwater on a plane and we're all about to die. Like, so good, just like so captivating. I'm here for this, Mike. I love this. He goes on to talk about, this is the line I want you to pay attention to because he uses the terminology we've been hearing from the Seattle Kraken. Quote, for the Kraken to become perennial contenders, their homegrown prospects have to hit. Boom, baby. Homegrown prospects have to hit. Now, why am I reading this article? Not just because I love the words. I was also watching A Star is Born, like the one with Lady Gaga and Bradley Cooper. I've actually never seen any other version, so sorry, don't at me. But also do, because we'll talk about comments coming up next. Anyway, when what's that guy's name? He was in Tombstone and like a bunch of other stuff. Beautiful hair. Is his name Sam or something? Whatever. The older brother, and he says like the Bradley Cooper character liked how Lady Gaga interpreted the notes, or like he liked how she heard the notes or whatever. That's what this article is. I like how he put together these words. I like how he drew a picture for us. And what I hope that you get from this article, if you go check it out, because I highly recommend that you do, is that the Seattle Kraken, this is what I got from this article. The Seattle Kraken are casting 10,000 times plus, trying to catch that. What is the fish? The muskie. I was more of a striped bass gal. We used to try and catch bass, striped bass very specifically. Grew up eating and catching lots of striped bass. Anyway, perennial contenders. That's what we're trying to hook, and the cast, I think, are the trades, the prospects, but the hook, superstar centers. At least that's what Mike is saying. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. He goes on to talk about some of the other moves or the other casts of the 10,000 that are not as important. Quote, the ability to develop standout centers is more important long term than anything the team did or didn't do. Tuesday, talking about free agency. Talks about Matt Murray, Marchman, Lindgren. Those moves are not nothing. He goes on to say, however, Lindgren, Marchment, Gaudreau, and Murray are not franchise-altering additions. And he's right. He's absolutely right. Of the 10,000 casts, Marchment, Lindgren, Gaudreau, and Murray are not what you're expecting is going to hook you the big fish. Are you following me? I love this. Did I tell you how much I love this article? For a team that has A, missed the playoffs, and B, fired its coach in consecutive season, the continual draft cast must yield a major catch. And that's where I'm at right now, Seattle Kraken fans and listeners to Locked On Kraken. Yes, if you want to buy into the 10,000 casts to catch the beautiful fish that Jake was talking about, our boy Jake, yeah, you get it. It's going to take a while. You trust the process. However, the continual draft casts must yield a major catch. And you can read the rest of the art. I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'm tempted to, but I'm not going to read the whole thing to you. You can go check it out. That's where I think we are. We're in that phase where you've been casting, maybe you've lost a lure, an anchor or two, the weather has started to turn, you didn't pack enough snacks. Like that's where we're at in this fishing trip, people. And you now you're second guessing your technique. Should you have come out to try and fish at all? You know, all of the doubts, reasonable and unreasonable, are starting to creep in. And I want to know what this Seattle Kraken team is going to do to take a breath, reset, and recast. Is that what hiring Lane Lambert is going to do? I do think already the move to Jason Botterill is at least one of those deep breaths. You know, if we're doing box breathing, we are definitely getting in a better way with Botterill. But where does Shane Wright fit into this? Where does Berkley Catton specifically fit into this? Mike says, headlining the Kraken development camp, which began Monday. Of course, this article, again, was July 2nd, was Catton, who could crack the NHL roster at just 19. In the short term, the Kraken's center options include veteran Chandler Stevenson, Beniers, Wright, Gaudreau, and Catton. The fourth liner, Mikey Eyssimont, signed a 2-year deal with the Bruins. We talked about that. Again, I was in the middle of the chaos of moving, and I think I blacked out when it came to Eyssimont. But will any dominate for the next decade? That's the big question that we don't have an answer to, that we might not have an answer to for a while. 10,000 casts. Will any provide comparable production to the NHL's best centers? Connor McDavid, Nathan McKinnon, who's in Colorado, who else is in Colorado as of, this week? Dave Haxtell. Toronto's Austin Matthews, Florida's Alexander Barkov, or Pittsburgh's Sidney Crosby. Will any of our casts hook that big centerman for this organization that we can fry up, place in the... Okay, now it's getting a little wild. Anyway, will one, some, or none lift Seattle from underachiever to perennial playoff team? That is the question. And the article goes into that effectively Botterill was asked for that. He says we're continually looking for star players. We'll look at trade possibilities. We have high draft picks again. We're going to look within our system. I'm paraphrasing. I'm not reading directly. Draft capital. In the meantime, until that star player arrives, we'll continue to try to improve our team from an incremental standpoint. So as soon as possible is not this season. Again, the way I hear the words from the Kraken, especially in the introductory press conference for Jason Botterill, this is always what Jason was saying. What other people in the organization have said to me didn't sound as coherent, as far as clear, coherent, concise as this. They sounded like grandiose promises that could be interpreted this way, but were not explicit. Botterill, for me, has been the most consistent. Samantha Holloway, not as much, although semantics, maybe as soon as possible, doesn't literally mean as soon as possible. But okay, semantics, I'll let that go, maybe. Not a rebuild? Hybrid rebuild, I guess it is. But again, semantics. The Kraken will continue to cast lines and draft centers such as O'Brien, who said the largest muskie he caught measured 46 inches long. A trophy size would be like 50 inches, but on my lake, there's not too many of them, he said. A trophy fish is like a franchise. It's elusive. Kraken fans can relate. You put your foot in that one, Mike. You put your foot in that one, Mike. I like this article. I think it tells us to curb our enthusiasm, if you will. Very weird show, but it had some brushes with brilliance. It's not going to happen this year. And if it does, it will remind me of a season of yesteryear. Yeah, we've only had 4 seasons. Also, something that came up in the oh-so-pleasant comments on the Locked On Kraken YouTube page. We'll talk about that coming up on today's episode of Locked On Kraken. All right, Seattle hockey fans, you heard me nerd out. I used to have a segment that I did that I might have to come back to called Goodreads, and I think I just dropped one for you. Goodreads. That was fantastic. I really, really loved that read. So I want to go to a comment that was made under the Ty Cartier episode. Johnny Evans. I think the team is trying to recreate the team that got to the second round. That's interesting. That is really interesting. I already have drawn parallels between the goalie signing with Martin Jones. I mean, you know how much I loved Martin Jones because he saved that season. I don't know if that's what we're going to get from Matt Murray. But yes, that's reminiscent. I mean, we also had Ryan Donato, which is what I replied. I'm not going to read my whole reply, but I thought it was an interesting comment. Are we trying to get that grit, that sandpaper, that P&V? That's where P&V came from, I'm pretty sure, season 2, season 3. But I wrote towards the end, overall, though, I'm not sure that season 2, can be replicated. It seemed like lightning in a bottle, which is something that I said after season 2 and in that off season. And we might have missed the window to harness it. I said that so much in the off season, and it proved to be right. It felt like we almost had that big fish hooked, and then it squirmed away. Big Fish is another great film. Highly recommend. Tim Burton, I believe. Yeah. Fantastic film. Anyway, like we had it hooked and then it got away. We couldn't reel it in. That's what season 2 was. I don't know that you can replicate that. You certainly can try, but the wind, the water, the temperature, everything is different. Everything is different. Even when you try to make it the same, no cast is the same. No season is the same. No roster is the same. Gosh, I love that article and what it's allowed me to do on this episode with the fish analogy, and it's fantastic. Okay. So that's Johnny, you and I went back and forth on that. Someone else, and I want to thank Edge Skier because I probably misspoke. Cartier, Capo Caco and arbitration, everything has to be sorted out. So he will be, so arbitration is binding. Yes. Yes. Thank you. Also, I didn't explicitly mention that Riker Evans didn't go to arbitration because he's not eligible for arbitration. There's all these different things. And yeah, Riker Evans not eligible. So thank you for clarifying that. Randy G saying Francis blew it big time after the second season. So, says they had a good foundation, suspect goaltending, the pushback sometimes necessary, but it's now he's talking about the comment, but a whole freaking segment. That's why I follow other Kraken podcasts more frequently. Okay, cool. They're amazing podcasts. And yes, I did spend an entire segment. And you know what, Randy, you're probably going to want to go listen somewhere else because I'm going to return to this topic because you're not the only one. We had another comment saying that me spending an entire segment, and I mean, I did not only talk about and clap back, but it gave me an opportunity to give other experts who said the same thing that I did. And I don't know, I mean, I didn't see, them be kind of chastised for clearly not playing a 84 game season. Sounded to me very unprofessional. A comment can be mean and condescending and whatever, but you have a much higher standard as a creator as part of Locked On Kraken. Standards. That's interesting. I really found this comment interesting, and I didn't want to engage too much on YouTube. Just said, hey, thanks for watching. That's a statement that I can be true. I'm being true to who I am. It's acknowledging the comment and being prepared to move on. Or so I thought. But this commenter came back saying, not sure if it was an automatic comment or something, said, not trying to be a hater. I appreciate that. I appreciate you clarifying. You have to take criticism even just to think about it and to see that you can agree and can change or disagree and move on. Never get mad because this is the internet after all. You know what? And I appreciate you clearing that up. And I understand that. However, I think even this exchange between you and I on social media is an example of why I did take time out to correct that comment, because the standard of professionalism, as it is, air quotes for those on audio, policed for women, for Black people, for Latinas, of which I happen to be all three, not to mention very opinionated from New York. Professionalism has often, I've seen it firsthand. I can do exactly what my colleagues, regardless of how they identify, I can do exactly what they do and still be too sensitive or not connected enough or this, that, and the third. So while I appreciate your comments and truly thank you for watching, ! I say that truly. It was my way of acknowledging you, but wanting to move forward, which I think was what your first comment was about. But even when I do that, I still then, get more comments back on why I should do A, B, C, X, Y, Z. So at the end of the day, I can only be me. That's all I know how to be. And it's taken a long time to even figure that out. And I'm still working on it. I've apologized for things before on this show. I will acknowledge when I make a mistake or sound absolutely ridiculous. It's part of the game. That's not what I'm talking about here. But there is a general fatigue that I feel. And I do think it's linked to my gender, my race, my ethnicity, and yeah, that I stand on business. There's a general fatigue. And how much can you take before you have to stand your ground? What do I say about the Kraken all the time? Y'all know I hate fighting in hockey. Cannot stand it. I think it's absolutely ridiculous to physically take off your gloves and punch someone in a plastic visor. That makes no sense to me. I also tell you that sometimes the Kraken play a little soft, and that if they don't throw their weight around every once in a while, people are going to bully ball them, or hockey, they're going to bully them. I don't like getting punked. So I give the same energy to y'all. And I know that most of you have never met me, and that's fine. But I promise you, I give the same energy on this podcast that I do in real life. And I'm learning and discerning for myself what is natural, what makes me feel good, what makes me feel confident, and what makes me feel validated in what I address and what I don't. So I don't mind the comments at all. But when comments are telling me to act a certain way, expecting that I act a certain way, that is a standard that quite honestly is held for white males, but not for anybody else. Yeah, I'm probably gonna clap back. And yeah, I don't appreciate being told that because I've never played an 84 game NHL season, like a lot of, if not all, of my colleagues on the Locked On Podcast Network. Yeah, I kind of take exception. That's my Brandon Tanev rushing Shane Wright thing. That's a surefire way for me to, in this, extended metaphor, kind of pull a Brandon Tanev. That's my soft spot, so to speak. So I really do appreciate the comments, and it's kind of like, if I go for it, I get unprofessional. If I say, hey, thanks for watching, then I still get told what I should have, could have done. So I might as well just do what works for me. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I continue to enjoy the comments. I get it. Not everyone liked my rant. I didn't go into the comments, though, that were like, go off, Erica. And I'm like, thank you. I read those too. I appreciate you. Gonna stand on my business. If y'all can watch grown men throw their gloves down and pull each other's shirts over their, over their torsos, over their necks and shoulders, give me 5 minutes. Just give me 5 minutes every 68, 78 games. I'm not going to do it all the time, but every once in a while, I'm going to show out. I'm going to show out a little. Okay? Be kind to yourselves. Be kind to one another. My act of kindness is to get some Italian food in Chicago for me tonight. We hold fast. We stay true. And loud and proud we say, let's go Kraken. I'll be at a conference this week, so we're probably going to switch, as I did for today's show, to the nighttime. But we will still have episodes, and I will still be here. Hope y'all are here too. And if you're not, that's fine. Everydayers, OGers, I appreciate you so, so much. I will catch you on the next episode. Peace out, everybody.